Okay, it's 1 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. I'd like to move on to item 1.2 of our agenda, which is roll call, and I ask our clerk, Jessie Clark, to please conduct the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lamstead, are you present?
I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
And Councillor Braybrooke send his regrets. For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer. Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk. Present. And Jessie Clark, Director of Corporate Services, Clerk, is present.
Okay, thank you. We can move on now to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Okay, thank you. We can move on to item 2 of our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda as circulated. I would entertain a motion for same. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any conversation about the agenda as circulated? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 3 of our agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest. If any member of council has a pecuniary interest on an item on the agenda, please disclose it now or anytime during the meeting prior to discussing anything on the item you have an interest in. Seeing none, we can move on to item 4 of the agenda, which is adoption of minutes. Item 4.1 is our regular council meeting of May the 20th, and item 4.2 is our statutory public meeting of May the 20th. We can, Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
Approve.
Approve both at once. Do I have
Yes.
a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any conversation about the minutes? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 5 of our agenda. It's committees and boards. Item 5.1 is liaison reports for council boards and committees. Does anyone have anything to report? I'm seeing none, so we can move on to item 6 of our agenda, which is statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act, which we have none today. Item 7 is the business arising out of that statutory public meeting, which we had none, so we have no business. Item 8 is presentations. We have none, and we can move on to item 9, which is delegations. Delegates will have 10 minutes. The time will be put on the screen, so please keep yourself to 10 minutes if you possibly can, and all questions from council will come after each delegation. If we have item 9.1 is Steve Burgess. Would you come to the podium and please do your delegation?
That's me.
Oh, yeah.
Here it is. Thank you. Dear council members, friends, neighbors, my name is Steve Burgess and my sisters and I own property Lot 1, Concession 15. My in-laws, Paul and Ellen Judd, own property on the south end of the lake. Our extended family are known as the Robinsons, Murphys, Scooses, Monkmans, have owned property on Salmon Lake since the 40s. So you can see that we collectively have a lot of experience in the history of this area. I live with my parents at the back lot property from time I was 12 years old. In that time, I was a volunteer firefighter, worked for the Township Roads Department, and did odd jobs with my dad, such as launching docks, buildings, septic tanks, renovating, emergency cottages. I've been in emergency situations where I have needed quick access to the lake for fire suppression, rescue some trapped on the ice, quickly reach people on the other side of the lake. I personally used that lake access point question. When I lived there, I kept my boat at that dock so that I could go fishing. I've used that access to launch my, where did I go here? Launch my ice hut in the wintertime and swim with my cousins in the summer. My neighbors have used this site and water to water their livestock and for their own recreational purposes. I watched the video of the council meeting where the sale of this property was approved And I can tell you from personal experience, this property is used frequently by local property owners. I understand in the 50 years that there have been, in 50 years that there have been a couple of incidents between residents at the site, residents who have since sold their property and have moved on. So I don't believe this is a valid reason for the municipality to sell the site. I also understand that the municipality has been led to believe that in support of the sale from the local cottage owners association, but I would counter that a vote only by the executive members of the association on behest of the association's president does not necessarily reflect the support of the whole lake population. And I think this has been made clear by the letters of opposition and that have been sent in by the follow property owners in the area. And I'm pretty sure that if anyone you ask will tell you that I'm a good neighbor. I understand Peter is in need to be able to access his property and I have nothing against him personally. I agree that some improvements can be made and will benefit all residents, similar to the north end of the access. A permanent dock and reasonable parking space could be set up in this space. I know many neighbors would be willing to help with that and these improvements. In summary, many local residents use this space and would be disadvantaged by the sale. As such, I'd like to make sure my opposition to this sale is on record. Please keep this property public. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Does anyone on council have any questions, Steve? I'm seeing none. Okay, thank you very much for your delegation. We appreciate that. Okay, we can move on to item 9.2. And Ryan Tucker, would you like to please come to the podium? And you have 10 minutes for your delegation.
Good afternoon, council and audience. I purchased the property in 2017. It's 98 Boundary Lane. Purchased that property solely on the survey that I have today to show you that there's a deeded access attached to that property. Had that not been there, I wouldn't have bought the property. I would have went up north to an unorganized township to prevent this. So ultimately, I don't need 10 minutes. I bought this and now all of a sudden now it's not that. Are my taxes going to go down because my loss here? Doubt it. Right?
Yeah.
So what, one guy, everybody else loses for one guy, right?
Thank you for your delegation and your information. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Ryan. Okay, we can move on to 9.3 of our agenda, which is Mike Shada. Mike, would you come to the podium and please do your delegation?
Good day to all of you. My name is Mike Shada, S-H-A-Y-D-A. That's the spelling of my last name. I'm 75 years old, and my wife told me to behave myself. I thought I'd throw that in. And before I go into detail here, I see Jesse Clark. I've never met you before, but I want to thank you. In the correspondence I've dealt with, for example, Oshawa, and the service from you and compared to them is your service is excellent. Everything that I've asked for, you've provided really quick, and I mean that. So thank you for that. Okay, now I'm opposing the sale of this land between 245 and 241. Right. My primary address is in Oshawa. Additionally, with one of my sons, I own a second home at 368 South Salmon Lake Road. This also includes 100 acres. Okay. One of my other sons owns the lot that's immediately north of that on the opposite side of Salmon Lake, and the number is 373. It's 90 acres also. He can't attend, and he's asked me to inform you that he opposes this sale also. Another close friend of mine, his name's Lance Naismith. He is unable to attend. He's on a river cruise in Europe, but he opposes this, and he owns 25 or 26 acres. I think the number is 51 on Boundary Lane. So until a few years ago, my sister, who passed away, owned 100 acres right next to my son, which meant that our immediate family owned 300 acres there. And it pretty well took all the territory from Boundary Lane up to Stong's Lane. Stong's Lane is another road that runs parallel north and south to Boundary Lane. So basically, I would estimate we probably own 3/4 of the land, between Boundary Lane, Stong Lane, and South Salmon Lake. So we're connected. We're connected to that. We've been in the area for a while. Now I've been involved in this area since the 70s, so that's 50 years plus. This subject parcel of land has been used for years to access Salmon Lake, and it's a vital part of our community. Selling it to one household violates public access rights and municipal policy. Alternatives like parking agreements should meet the applicant's needs without privatization. Now, I'm open to a fair and workable solution that addresses the applicant's needs. He needs parking for 2 vehicles and 1 trailer, while maintaining public access for residents and visitors. My goal is a resolution that satisfies all parties, ensuring continuing communal access to this vital resource for our community. Now, I provided related a substantial amount of correspondence to Jesse. Were you able to forward what I sent you this morning? Okay. I was away from a computer and a printer for about a week, so I had submitted what I did earlier, and I did a little bit of catch up here this morning, and I sent that in, because if you haven't got it, I've got some extra copies here. The last thing I want to say is I went to the lot there yesterday, and I had a look at it, and I took some pictures. And I think it's workable. There's maybe something that can be done there. A little bit of, a few trees might have to be cut down, and you guys own the land. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but maybe you can work something out. Looks like there might be enough room there for a couple of cars, lease it, or, it doesn't have to be a sale, as long as people can still get in there. I'd be willing to sit down with somebody and have a look at that. And, I've never met the applicants, never talked to them. Be nice if everybody walks away from this with a happy ending. That's why we're all up here, and, we want to enjoy it. So that's my piece. I'll yield whatever time's left to somebody else, unless you have some questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Does anyone on council have any questions?
Thank
Seeing none, thank you for your perspective. Appreciate it. Okay, we can move on to item 9.4 of the agenda, which is Peter Kutenkugler. Could you like to come to the podium, and please? You have 10 minutes for your delegation.
Thanks. I'm allowed to steal the chair first, so I'm putting Pete behind me. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak again, councillors and Mayor Lambshead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, and Trent Lake staff. And thanks to all the community members who came to put in their input and interest regarding our application to purchase this parcel of land on Salmon Lake. Please know that we do value all of the open communication. We respect everyone having a chance to speak, especially when so many of us can be affected. So thanks again to all. We know there's challenges inherent in building a cottage on a property that is water access only. We've spent many years researching and working to try and find a reasonable, agreeable, legal means to access our property via this small piece of land, a place to park our car, moor our 9.9 horsepower boat, and just load our gear. And we've been lucky enough to have friends who've been allowing us to use their dock and driveway as our access points all this time. We've never used this particular property to access the lake. We're currently have no place of our own to park and access. We shared with council several weeks ago, this site really seems to be the only viable option for us to get to our cottage. The process of making an application to you to purchase the municipal land is very specific, and we feel we have followed it to the letter. There's obviously some concerns, many concerns about accessing Salmon Lake, rightly so. We're actually just recently hearing from many people we didn't know had long-standing and historical access to this point. For the last few years, we've seen very little action there, so this is new. But obviously the consultation and public process is working. So we value that. We do also really want to find a solution that meets our needs, that doesn't at all inconvenience or interfere with or upset our neighbors at all. We have no plans to erect any buildings, gate or barrier access to the lake in any way, or to obstruct any fire department, obviously. So Pete wants to show just a few slides that helps to shed light on the parcel of land in question and a proposed solution. We really hope that we can satisfy any concerns and make something agreeable to all. So Pete's got a couple of pictures.
Jess,
And there it is.
okay, Jess, I need your help again. It's the right mouse button?
Oh.
There we go. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a slide that we had shown 4 weeks ago when we presented to council. The yellow dots represent all the known public access points to Salmon Lake, whether they're municipal, provincial, or crown land. And as you can see here, it's not a very big lake. It's 2.5 kilometers long, nose to tail. And at the north end, there is a public boat launch that everyone uses to, seasonally put in their boat and take out their boat and access it if you're a member of the public. So here we go. So this is the public boat launch, and you can see our application really is just to secure a long-term solution for a dock and parking. When we say trailer, that's the trailer. It's a 10-foot utility trailer we use for our building materials. That's our van. And then we have a second car you'll see in a second. So we made our application as we have seen very little activity at that municipal property in question. And as Chris said, we hope, and I'm glad to hear Mike Shada say it also, we hope to come to some sort of middle ground, and I think we can. So here's a map of the lake. This is a little bit outdated since I submitted this on Friday morning because there's been some other folks that have written in with objections. So we're in the center of the lake with the triangle there, and then the property in question is the orange star on the left. And so we now know that there are a lot of folks that have interests and are objecting, and we fully respect that. And their objections mainly stem on a common theme, which is access. And again, we are working towards, in this presentation, towards option number 3 that you have in your staff report. So there's a lot of names that came forward. We don't know a lot of them. And again, their main concerns were maintaining public access.
Oh, click again.
Click again. We'll have to aim this at. Okay. Okay. So here's the area in question. Inside the red box is 245 Boundary Lane, and that's the abutting neighbor to the south. The abutting neighbor to the north is about 250 meters up the laneway, which is at the top of the screen. There we go. To the best of our understanding, this property is 66 feet wide and is shown between these two red lines. There's very poor property stake markings, and we've asked in the past for some sort of a survey to understand where everything is, and there is no survey. So that'll be one of the things that we want to ask about. So to the best of our understanding, this property is shown between those two red lines. On the next slide, just to bring everyone to a common understanding of what the place looks like, I want to show a 1-minute video of a walkabout on the property. So to get your bearings, the video will start at that yellow dot, and you'll see a van parked there, just for your reference and your bearings. And then the walkabout in the video will go along this green line. So let me see if I can make this work. Okay, so here's the video, and I hope to advance it properly. Let's see if this works. There we go. I think it's starting to, okay. So this is the video. It's kind of jagged. This is obviously not very smooth, but this is the site. Okay, so when you're watching that, the beer cans were not littered. They showed 2 out of the 5 survey stakes. There are 5 survey stakes on that property. They're all a little bit confusing. One is smack in the middle. Again, I think we need to propose a professional survey to figure them out. So in this hand-drawn sketch here is the property. The blue line represents what we think is 66 feet wide. And it's not a very big property. What does that mean? So we measured our car at the Costco parking lot, and it's possible to fit, 6 parking spots there, but that's obviously not the intent. It's not Costco at all. It's just as a reference. We need parking for 2 cars. So we're fully endorsing the staff report's compromise solution, which is option 3 on the staff report, to split the property, a portion to remain municipally owned for public access, and we purchase the remainder. Whether that's a 50-50 split, a 60-40 split, north versus south, we can make it work. We want to win for every stakeholder. So in summary, we are the only water access only property on Salmon Lake, the only remaining one. And for the last 14 years, we have been using our friend's dock and driveway as our jumping off point to get to our island. As Chris had said, we do not see any other viable option for us around the perimeter of the lake. We have proactively reached out to those closest on Boundary Lane, and we've had respectful and friendly dialogue. So I want to say thank you very much to Steve Burgess and Amanda. We did have very good dialogues also with Shane Martin, and those were very good dialogues. And as we had said, we do see the Trent Lake solution to partition the property as a workable compromise. And we're also proposing that we would hire a surveyor at our cost, and not just of the portion that, should we get, a certain portion of it, we would ask the surveyor to survey the whole area, and we would share copies with the municipality so that everyone can see where everything is. So I'm glad to hear that this conversation today has elevated itself above the parallel conversation that was on social media. So I'm very excited to hear all the other delegations seem to be in line with working towards a win-win solution. You very much. Have a good, appreciate it.
Thank
You
you.
have 4 seconds left.
I noticed that too. I was going to congratulate him.
Before you
It's gonna be
leave
tight.
the desk, does any member of council have any questions for Pierre or Chris? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just one question. The shots that went into the video that you showed, when were they taken?
A week ago.
Photographs? Sorry?
A week ago.
A week ago. Okay.
Um,
And there's a dock there?
there is a dock there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Very much.
Okay,
I'm sorry, there's no
Oh, I'm
comments from the
sorry,
public.
Mr. Cadigan.
There's no questions from the public during this delegation. There is no questions from the public at this point. Okay, sorry. Councillor Cadigan had another question.
Through you, Mayor Lambshead, I'm wondering about the culvert that's in the pictures there. Is it part of the lot or the water? Do you know the culvert I'm talking
There
about?
is a drainage area through the middle of the property. It's, it comes across the driveway from higher ground, and there would have to be something to address that, some sort of rerouting of that.
Beaver pond up there comes flow down.
Yeah, sorry, no comments from the public. You had
You
your
heard that
chance at
there's
your
a beaver
delegation.
pond.
Well, thank you.
It's all good.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Now we can move on to, thank you very much for your delegation. We can move on to 9.5 of our agenda, which is Amanda Mackey. Would Amanda come to the podium and please have your delegation? Okay, Amanda, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today to listen to us. Very nervous, so I'll just do my best to.
You relax and take your time. You have
Thank
10
you.
minutes.
My name is Amanda Mackey, and my husband and I have been living on Boundary Lane for 11 years. This is our first home, and we purchased it with the understanding that we had protected access to Salmon Lake, which is just a 5-minute walk from our home. In the appendix, we're 175, so we own 10 acres. There's Crown land on one side, and then our neighbor who was mentioned in one of the delegations, his name is Lance, who also opposes, and then the water. We kindly request that you choose option 2 that I saw listed in the recommendation from staff. And deny sale of the land. Preserving public waterfront access is vital, not only for recreation, but for safety and equity. As someone who lives, works, and volunteers in Trent Lakes, I know the importance of our access to water and beg you to preserve it for us. After watching the previous meetings, I understand that the main reason for your approval of the sale was because of the issues at the dock, proposed issues at the dock, the support of the abutting property owners, and that no one uses this access point. Well, we respectfully rebut all of these points and trust you can see why after receiving 20 plus letters of objection. As was mentioned in the letters of objection, this access point to Salmon Lake has been used for decades and is an integral part of our community. Just some anecdotal things are my grandfather, who's no longer with us. We used that point to get him ice fishing. We took him in a little sled on the back of the snowmobile so that he could get out there and do some ice fishing, which wouldn't have been possible otherwise. I mentor for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Kawartha Lakes, and my mentee is a young Indigenous girl, and we use that access point to canoe, to explore the lake, to be connected with nature. And my family visits from all over Canada to either stay with us or rent a non-waterfront Airbnb or something similar, and access the water with us as well. So it's really an integral part of my life, but that's not the main reason I oppose it. Another thing that was mentioned is about launching boats and watercrafts. We do launch boats there. We call it the boat launch. Our neighbors and the community calls it the boat launch. We generally don't launch bigger water, my pontoon boat, for example, although it's small, we usually go around to the other side, which is a little over an hour drive with the, condition of the road, let's say, and depending on how much traffic there is in the summer. But generally speaking, we launch our boats there, as do some of the cottage owners on our road. So after speaking with some other community members, I came to the understanding that the abutting property owners now do not support the sale of the land. And there is no dock drama. I watched the presentation and I know it was mentioned that there were some complications and some bylaw or reports or something like that. The person who that was referring to has been gone for years. They sold the property because they didn't feel welcome. They mentioned to me that they felt it was racism from the previous abutting owners. I never personally observed any partying or illegal activity at the access point. I observed years ago him and his children playing and using a lily pad and splashing around and not partying. So I use this access to Salmon Lake for me personally. I use it daily. I go for a walk first thing in the morning, 5:30, between 5:30 and 6:30 with my dogs, and they swim there and drink there. And I use it to launch my boats. I use it to ice fish. I use it to skate on the lake, to hike on the lake, especially because it opens our world when everything's frozen. And I use it, as I said, I'm full-time, so I also see the use of that property. So my bay window faces Boundary Lane, and I can see when people go by. So I do see who I couldn't contact because I don't know them, but people from Galway, for example, in the 121, they launched their ice huts there. And if they wanted to go fishing, they would go there because the other alternative is, like I said, an hour drive, and it's dusty and a small road. Yes, so I think that's it for the main points, but by selling this little slice of heaven, a dangerous precedent would be set. You would be taking something away that the public relies on to benefit one family. The sale would reduce the value of all the non-waterfront homes on Boundary Lane and surrounding roads and greatly increase the value of the island property. According to bylaw B2011-055, Road allowances that provide access to water will be retained in municipal ownership and available to the public. Both the bylaw and the staff report of May 6th point to a clear answer. Option 2, please deny the sale of the land. I'll mention just briefly, since I have a minute or so, that the point about very little action at the boat launch, or our boat launch there at the end of Boundary Lane, this municipal land we're discussing, is not true. We do use it a lot. It's just generally speaking, we don't use it often on the weekends when all the cottagers are up enjoying the property. My dogs are not friendly with everybody, so we like to go first thing in the morning when nobody else is around, on leash, of course. And as I said, I do see the people accessing that property. I know my neighbors and community members do. The other thing about option 3, about the 2 pieces of land, I think it makes the points, I think it makes everything more complicated. A, because as you could see, it's quite swampy there and there is some fresh water runoff. As Steve mentioned, against the rules, there's a beaver dam there. And so I think it would be difficult to section that off, and it would cause a lot more destruction to the environment to try to make more parking there. Right now, you can kind of park one vehicle without obstructing anything, although a lot of people don't do that. They just walk there or use it briefly. And you can launch your boat there by backing up, and you can turn around and everything like that. But I do think it would be difficult and cause quite a bit of destruction to the wildlife. Like this morning I was there, there's a beaver swimming there, there's an otter, I see turtles there, snakes there, frogs, and I mean, obviously other creatures that don't stay around while humans are there. So again, I don't think 3 is a viable option, but I do think that maybe we can share access, as Steve was talking about, some way through the municipality, whether that's, you know, coming together and building a dock, or that's in line with all the municipalities' rules and regulations, and hopefully allow the applicants to access their property as well. But again, I do ask that you please deny the sale of that piece of property. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay. Thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
You've done well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of Amanda? I'm seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we can move on to item 9.6 of our agenda, which is Mike Murchison.
He's online, so I'm just going to unmute him now.
Mike, go ahead with your 10-minute delegation.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. I can turn my camera on too, if that's a possibility. Folks want the visual. Is that useful?
Not sure we have room on the screen here, but maybe that's. Maybe we don't want to adore you.
I'm a sight for sore eyes, so that's okay. Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, everyone. As council, thank you for having me. My name is Mike Murchison, and I am, alongside my wife Anna and our 1-year-old daughter, are the owners of 241 Boundary Lane, one of the abutting properties. The other owner is Chris Lee and his family, and they are the owners on the other side of the property in discussion. It's also a pleasure to see some familiar faces on the call or in the room. Ryan, Amanda, Peter, Steve. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, Steve, but I see your name on your cottage every time we drive to our new cottage, and I'm looking forward to meeting you too. We are new members of the community, and my wife and I purchased 241 Boundary Lane just over a year and a half ago. This will be our second summer up at Salmon Lake, and we are very excited to for our cottage to become a generational family place for us. We feel very dearly about the surrounding community. We want to play an active role in the community, and we feel that Salmon Lake is a very special, very special both community and piece of nature. We were contacted by Peter and Chris early in our relationship with Salmon Lake in October of last year about the proposed idea to sell this piece of land. And at the time, there were 3 reasons why we were supportive of this proposed plan. The first was that we were under the impression that this was a piece of land that wasn't actively used, that was causing pain to the community. There was excessive noise and debris and illegal activity. And third, that selling it would increase the preservation of the environment, which is important to us. We also assumed that its sale had the support of the wider community. And since then, we have come to learn that the sale of this land does not have the support of the community, and that it is in fact actively used by many of our neighbors that we were not aware of at the time. I should say, from our own relationship with this land, my wife, and my daughter and I walk down our driveway very regularly in all 4 seasons, and we have never seen any sort of excessive noise or debris or illegal activity ourselves. So I do think that characterization is a product of previous ownership or members of the community who are no longer here. And to be clear, it is not a concern to us as one of the abutting owners. All to say that, in light of this new information and our deeper understanding of the community and the use of this property, we are opposed to its sale. We are of the belief that this should remain publicly accessible, and that the property as currently configured is definitely far more used than we appreciated, and it's in a state that we think should be maintained. We're opposed to the third proposal that would require the modification and certainly the removal of some trees. And I do know that Chris and family, whose property is very close to the video that was shared, have concerns about the impact of any sort of construction or parking places on their experience of the lake. And so all to say is that we want to be we initially made the decision here with context that has since changed, and we really appreciate the council's consideration of our updated view. I'm open to answering any questions that folks have, and again, I appreciate the time and the consideration, given that I'm not there in person today.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Does anyone on council have any questions of Mike? I'm seeing none. Mike, I thank you very much for your delegation.
Thank you.
Okay, now we can move on here to, I would entertain a motion to receive all of the delegations we received today. Councilor Cadigan for a mover, Councilor Franzen for a seconder. Any further conversation about the delegations? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. I thank everyone for your delegation, and we do appreciate the information you shared with us. Okay, we can move on now to item 10 of our agenda, which is staff reports. Item 10.1 is Public Works. 10.1.1, Evan Grieger, our Director of Public Works. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Lambshead. Through you, Mayor, to members of council, before you today is just a report regarding the Bessie North additional design costs. So as a result of the notice of motion, there's just some additional funds that need to be transferred to complete the final design work. As discussed in the report and shown in the pictures, The section that needs to be further designed there's a little bit more topsoil. It's not as built on rock as the first 500 meters is. So just need this additional funds just to be able to complete additional design and geotechnical work.
Okay, thank you very much, Evan. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Gallagher.
Through your Mayor Lamstead, without getting too technical, Evan, is it just basically putting rock fill in the hole or?
So the additional design work will be doing some cores just to be able to see, test pits to be able to see what the makeup is underneath there. Because when you look at that way, it sort of drops off down into the gully. So not sure if there's rock right there or if there's some layers of topsoil and stuff like that. So if there's topsoil, you need to ensure that you remove that prior to building the road.
And worst case scenario, it's bottomless mud.
Then you can look at there's different ways to stabilize the road. So it's not something where you just continue to dig. You can use GeoGrid or you can use some granular B to sort of bridge that to help keep the compaction to ensure, the road doesn't fall apart on us and you have that compaction. It's a requirement that the engineer needs to sign off, and that's sort of one of the key pieces of it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? See none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
Motion to receive the report from the Director of Public Works and to approve the transfer of $17,850 from the roads reserve for design costs on Bessie Avenue North.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any further conversation? I'm seeing Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Lamstead. Just a question, Evan. Who will do this work, and is it a continuation of work that's already been done, or will be going? Okay, so that answers. That's the next
Yes, it's
question.
the same consultant that did the first half. They're continuing on, and it'll be the same geotechnical consultant as well doing that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on now to, thank you, Evan Grieger, our Director of Public Works. We can move on to 10.2 of our agenda, which is recreation facilities. We have none. 10.3 is fire and emergency services. We have none. 10.4 is building and planning. 10.4.1, Adele Arbor, would you like to speak to this item? Our planner.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor Lamstead, I have received an email from Janet Clarkson advising that the Lions Club will not be moving forward with the food pantry at this time. And the report that's before council was planning staff's investigation to other municipalities that have community fridge and pantry programs. And that was based on a resolution previously made by council. And so at this time, the recommendation from staff would be that the report be deferred for 3 months to enable future discussions with the Lions Club. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele Arbor, our planner. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Adele? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lamstead. Thanks, Adele. Thanks for all the work that's been done and in the background on this. My only concern with the recommendation is I think we would want to wait until the Lions Club initiates conversation, because it's really in their hands at this stage. If they're withdrawing any further interest, then we not do anything until or unless we hear from them, if that's acceptable to add to the motion.
I think that's the idea, is we'll wait 3 months and then let them contact us and make sure.
I just wanted to make that very clear in the motion.
Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
A motion to receive the report for information.
And support that idea from our planner, or?
No.
No.
I'll second that.
Okay, second that. Any other conversation about the report? Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
Since I'm a member of the Lions Club, I'd like to abstain from voting.
Okay. Any other?
So I'm asking for a recorded vote, so it's noted that I have to abstain.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, in
Yep, please go
terms
ahead.
of the recommendation I was presenting to council for the deferral for 3 months, the email wasn't really clear whether they were abandoning the entire idea of a community fridge pantry, or maybe just the timing wasn't right. So that's why my request was for a 3-month deferral, that we could have some further discussion to see if this is really an idea that they want to abandon or maybe pick up in the fall.
Okay. That change any motions or ideas in anyone? Councillor Cadigan?
Option 2 is what I was looking at.
Okay. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. Oh, I can't call for the vote. We have it. Go ahead. Your turn. Jesse Clarker?
Councillor Franzen, are you in favor?
Abstain.
Mayor Lamset?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Yes.
And Councillor Cadigan?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now we can move on to item 10.5 of our agenda, which is finance. We have none. 10.6 is administration. We have none. 10.7, this is corporate services. And 10.7.1, Jesse Clark, our Director of Corporate Services. Clerk, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamset. At the May 6th regular meeting, council directed staff to proceed with the application from Peter and Chris Kutenkler to purchase a portion of land on Salmon Lake. A notice was placed in a local paper on the municipal website, circulated to property owners within a 120-meter radius, and posted on the property for at least 14 days in accordance with the disposal of real property policy. In total, the municipality is in receipt of letters of objections from 21 residents, including 2 that rescinded previous support, along with 1 written and 1 verbal expression of support. Council also heard from a number of delegations earlier in the meeting related to this potential sale. The concerns expressed are generally summarized as the only public access to the lake, besides an hour drive to the Salakoa boat launch, prioritizing the private sale over the needs of the broader community, protecting the land as a public asset, and that this land has been used generationally by multiple families in the area as a vital recreational resource for year-round activities. Concerns were also expressed about the use of this land by the Emergency Services Department, and staff consulted with the director, who confirmed that they do not have reason to keep the property, and based on the provisions in the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, are satisfied that they will have adequate access to Salmon Lake in the event of any emergencies. Staff have provided 3 options in the staff report with associated draft motions for council's consideration. The first option, if council is still supportive of the sale after the public consultation process, is to declare this portion of land as surplus to the needs of the municipality, and to authorize the stop-up, closure, and sale of this portion of land to the applicants. The second option, after hearing the objections that arose from the public consultation process, would be to deny the application and keep the entirety of the land available for public access. The third option is a potential compromise where the applicants would only purchase a portion of the width of the water frontage of the proposed land in order to maintain public access to the lake at this location, while also securing a dock area and parking for the applicants. While there have been objections to the third option, staff recommend proceeding with option 3 to balance the need to maintain public access while ensuring access to the applicant's water access only property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse Clark. Okay, any conversation from council? Anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
I'll speak in favor of option 2. I think the people have spoken. They don't want to see it sold privately. I think it's incumbent on us to listen when people speak, and I don't think we should sell it.
Thank you. Any other conversation? Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Lamset. First of all, thanks for the input that's been provided. I too was unaware that this property was being used by the public. So that's new information that we did not have at the time we reviewed this last time. So that's helpful to understand. I'd like to find a compromise that satisfies everybody. I don't know that option 3 is the only option to reach a compromise. And if we had a bit more time, whether we could work out something that might better satisfy everybody's needs. I'm kind of leaning towards deferring this and referring it back to staff and council to consider any other options. Because again, this is sort of new to me, and I would need some time to think about some creative solutions to it. But recognize the need for both parties to have some access to this property where they're not in conflict. is the sort of end desirable solution to try and strive for. So I think I'm leaning towards a deferral as opposed to making a decision today.
Okay. Councillor Franzen, any comments?
Yeah, I'm really torn on this item. One thing through you, Mayor, one of the things I was wondering about is if improvements have to be made to this property to split it, to make it viable for all parties, where would the funds come from? Would it be a municipal responsibility? Would it be responsibility of the Cook Miller?
I don't know if any member of staff can answer that question. Councillor Cassidy, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. Evan, if we have to move that culvert, what do you think it's going to cost?
Through you, Mayor, I've said to Councillor Cadigan, cost of a culvert, you know, like if we did it in-house with our own staff, which we're quite busy, and it's not something we could just jump to, you could probably do that for $1,000 with the culverts and gravel and stuff like that. But it'd be something, I'd have to look closer at it, just if there's wetlands involved and stuff like that, I wouldn't want to get in trouble. I do know that they believe there's no conservation authority up there, so we do the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, which are pretty easy, but it's one of those, I haven't myself been to that site, so I don't have a good idea of what that culvert work would need. But for the price of the culvert and the material, you'd be probably $1,000 to $2,000 if completed with municipal forces. But
thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to make one more comment, Mary Lam said. I was quite disturbed that there's a dock at that location. We have had a constant battle of asking people to remove their dock from municipal property over the last 5 years. And it goes back up, we ask them to remove it. So it seems to be a blatant disregard for the fact that it is municipal property and that no one person should be putting their dock as long as it remains in municipal ownership. So I just want to make that comment because I was really quite disturbed to see that.
Okay. Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, if we are looking at a deferral, I'd like to see whether it's the split is going to be 60-40, what a viable split would be that it would accommodate all repairs.
Thank you for that. That was my idea too, is item 3 is sort of supportable because if you don't sell 50% of it, you leave a lot more property for public use and you only have enough to get a couple of cars and a trailer parked and a dock put on it. That probably takes away our issue with that dock or a dock. So it's a nice way to supply a ratepayer with the water access cottage with a way to get to their cottage and also keep the water access for all the public that are here today to represent that boat launch that I personally have used myself in the wintertime a couple of times. So, I mean, I think you got to keep that water, that public access, but you can have a small sliver of privately owned property there as well to access a water access only cottage because it is the last one on that lake. Just my opinion. Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
I'll make that a motion, the deferral and staff report on the cost of the culvert and what the recommended split would be from staff.
I think if we're going to sell it, though, we're not fixing the culvert. Like that, just my opinion anyway. If we're selling 40%, 30%, 20 feet, 30 feet, whatever we decide to, if that's the direction, I don't think we're putting any skin in that game.
So is the culvert on the would be on the private portion or on the public portion? If it was on the public portion, I think we would want to make it accessible for the public to use it as a boat launch.
I think it is now.
As it is now.
I've seen some nice big 4-inch stone was dumped there recently too, on the boat launch. I don't know, it's not a simple solution. I think it's maybe something we might want to take a look at, a smaller piece to sell to keep a larger piece for public access. It's a reasonable way to solve this. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Lam said it, and maybe I'm going in circles, but the reason I was looking for staff to come to look at this again is, is there another option whereby it stays in municipal ownership, but there's an agreement with the Kootenhallers to have a dock there and a space on our property that doesn't involve selling it. So that's where I was going, was just to say, are there some other options we could consider if we looked at this a little harder, knowing what we now know about the use of that property? And
Clerk
I see
Jesse
the
Clark
clerk
would
is
like to speak to
saying
that item.
something.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lamstead, that option was proposed in the original report and was not supported by council, and I do not believe is supported by the applicants.
And that would have been like the license of option. Well, we don't have a license.
An
of
encroachment agreement and parking.
operation.
Okay. So we need to find a way forward somehow. I can't make a motion, or I would.
Then I think I'd make a motion to support option 3 with further details to come back to council about splitting and the solution that would be acceptable to both parties and allow both parties the use that they would like to continue and seek.
Anyone would like to second that motion? Councillor Franzen will second that motion. Any further conversation? Go ahead, Jesse Clark, our clerk.
Through you, Mayor
More
Lamstead,
detail.
I think it's very clear from the comments that we heard today that I don't think I can find a solution that will satisfy every person in this room, every person that provided written correspondence, and the applicants. That's a very tough position to put me in, and I have tried it. I don't know if someone is going to stick their heels in about the sale of it, this is an impossible goal that you've set for me.
Can you lease or rent it?
What?
This is worth nothing. I paid 50 grand for a survey and now we're saying.
Yeah, sorry, there's no comments from the gallery.
Let's get this straight out here.
Yeah.
There's definitely gotta be a solution.
And that's what,
It ain't rocket
Nobody
science.
that's what I think.
You can lease
Okay,
it off me.
there's no comments from the gallery, please. Thank you very much. You've had your time to speak. Now council will make a decision here, I hope. I mean, if it was me, but we have a motion on the floor, do we not? Okay, so. Do I have a second? We second that motion, right? Correct, yeah, okay, we've had some conversation. Now we need to clarify the motion slightly, so I think there is a simple solution. You sell a third of it, so it's wide enough to put 2 cars in a trailer and keep 2/3 of it for public access. And then they can put a dock on that, be just skinny little dock, has to be a dock. I think that would be the solution, rather than put staff in a position where it's going to be very difficult to, we want public access to the south end of Salmon Lake. It's been there forever. I think we need to maintain some of that. But we also have to recognize that the Kootencolors have tried everything to get a public access or private access to their cottage. And I think this is a simple solution to do it. You sell them a third of that width, you keep 2/3 of the width for the public to use, and hope everyone can get along. I think that's a simple solution. I think that's not in our motions.
I will modify my motion to suggest, but I won't put a third, I'll just put in there the minimum reasonable amount to be sold to the Kootencolors to accommodate their needs, and a larger portion, I won't say how much, to be retained for public access. And details, as I said previously, to be forthcoming in that report.
Okay. Are you okay with the modification to that motion?
Yeah, it's the only thing I'm concerned about, Mayor, is I believe we still need the costing of the culvert and the work that our roads department would do on a piece of property. We can decide whether we go forward with it at that time, but I think we at least need that in a report.
Okay. Would you be prepared to make that as a modification?
Yes, I would just say it as any associated costs.
Okay. Satisfy your second?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any further conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay. Thank you very much, Jesse Clark, for your guidance. Okay, we can move on to item 11 of our agenda, which is notices of motion. We have none. Item 12 is correspondence for information. We have item 12.1, which is the Galway Hall Board minutes, and we have item 12.2, which is Ontario Provincial Police organizational realignment. Anyone like to speak to those items? Or
Motion to receive.
motion to receive both? Okay, thank you, Councillor Franzen. Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation about the information items? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can move on to correspondence for action, which is item 13 of our agenda. Item 13.1 is the Buckhorn District Snowmobile Club funding request. Would anyone like to speak to that item? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Lamson. This is a request for support to the association to help them with the cost of hiring or renting equipment to clear their trails. And I do know that many people use their trails, not just for snowmobiling, but they also share trails with the ATV clubs. Many of us hike those, cross-country ski, et cetera, et cetera. So there is a benefit to the community of those trails, and they're maintaining them. I know we have about $5,000 remaining in our community grant fund, so that's an option. I also don't know whether there's any opportunity for us to loan them equipment. I know we get into liability and all that other stuff, but I'm getting a very evil eye from our staff when I suggest that. So I will swallow that back. So anyway, I would recommend that we allocate some of the remaining funds from our community grant program to them to help support with that effort.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments? Councillor Franklin, go ahead.
We do have a community grant process, and I would like organizations to follow it. I have no problem giving them a portion of that money now, but I think we should remind them that we do have a process for community grants.
If I can just respond to that, of course we do, but this is all because of the ice storm, which is a completely unexpected and uncontrollable event. And, you know, they're in a bind. So I think this is sort of quite an unusual situation that, you know, for which we would make an exception and acknowledge it's an exception, but that under normal circumstances, people should. I agree with you. I agree.
I'm good with that. I'd recommend $2,000.
I was thinking 3. This is a large tourism draw for our municipality, that there's many snowmobiles, ATVs, hiking, cross-country skiing, walking. The trails are in rough shape. There's a lot of trees fell into that open canopy, and they've got a big job ahead of them. They've done a lot already, but they're exhausted and still working hard at it. But a little bit of help from the municipality, I think, is warranted.
Just a comment for perspective, at the Buckhorn District Tourist Association meeting last night, I heard of one resort, just context, has already spent $40,000 clearing up their property from trees and brush, and another 20,000. So this is expensive stuff. So I think, you know, anything at $5,000 is not at all unreasonable.
Okay, do we want to put a number on that? Do we want a motion?
I saw Joe raise his hand over there.
Okay, Councillor Cadigan.
I'd make motion to support them in the neighborhood of $2,000.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Brandon, for a seconder. Any further conversation? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We're going to give them $2,000. It helps. It all helps. Machine for a few days. Okay, we have item 13.2 of our agenda. Unless someone wants to speak about any of the other ones, we could receive all the rest in one motion. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, motion to receive the 3 remaining.
Okay. Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any further conversation about the motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 14 of our agenda, which is bylaws. We have none. Item 15 is announcements. Does anyone have anything to announce? Seeing none, we can move on to item 16, which is our closed meeting. So I would entertain a motion to go into closed session. Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Now, before I call for the vote, this is item 6. We are going under the authority of the Ontario Municipal Act, Section 239(2), to discuss B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local boards, employees, committee board applications, E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, Dudney Starwood, and F, advice that is subject to solicitor client privileges, including communications necessary for that purpose. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We are going into close. Thank you very much for your delegations today. We appreciate your information.
Thank you.
Okay, we can move on to item 16.2 of our agenda, which is rise from closed meeting. I would entertain a motion to rise from our closed meeting. See Councillor Franzen for a mover and Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We are back in our regular council meeting. So we can move on now to item 17, which is business arising out of our meeting. Item 17.1 is the adoption of the minutes of May 20th, 2025. Would then entertain a motion to adopt the minutes. Councillor Cadigan for a mover, Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to 17.2 of our agenda. And Jesse Clark, our clerk, would you like to please speak to this item?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamshead, the recommendation is that council appoint Jenna Knight to the Environmental Advisory Committee and Carla Salvador to the Library Board for the remainder of the 2022 to 2026 term.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jesse. I would entertain a motion for same. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for the mover, Councillor Cadigan for the seconder. Any further conversation about that item? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can now move on to item 18 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. Item 18.1 is the confirming bylaw. See Councillor Cadigan for a mover, Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Now we can move on to item 19 of our agenda, which is adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Councillor Franzen for a mover. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, staff. Thank you very much, council. Thank you very much for everyone in the gallery, both virtual and physical.